especially me. Don't yell at me. Okay. So we may not get all questions in, and if we didn't get to your question, hopefully the candidates would stay for a minute or two and address those for you. So with that, I'm going to, we'll just start with Barry Buchholz and go down the line to Britannia and Justin and Katie, and they each have a minute and a half to just introduce themselves to you and whatever they would like to share.
I could go longer than a minute and a half. Barry Buchholz. I've been on the Linn-Mar Community School Board for 12 years, and very happy and very proud to be on the board. But to go back a little bit further, I had 3 sons go through the district. 2 of my daughter-in-laws went through the district, and now I do have 3 granddaughters in the district, which is really a pride thing for me, and I'm very, very happy to be able to serve on the board because of my granddaughters. And I've, once again, I served on the Linn-Mar Foundation for 8 years. I served on a number of strategic planning meetings. And then on a personal level, I've had a business in the community. I've been in the financial services business for about 40 years. And so that makes me old, and I appreciate that. I'm happy to be there. But when you get back to finance, you get back to communications, and you get back to the community. Linn-Mar Community School District's been good to my family, been very happy to be here. And I just feel like a very good community school district is important for the community, for our homes, for our properties, etc. So I appreciate your vote, and I'm looking forward to running.
Let me have a quick question. Can you hear him? Is that microphone close enough? All right, thank you.
Well, good evening. I'm Britannia Mori. I have been on the school board for the last 4 years. 7 years ago, my husband and I moved to Marion specifically so our son could attend Linn-Mar, and he's a 5th grader now, and it's the best decision that we have made. My time on this board has been phenomenal. It has been difficult. It's not without challenges, that's for certain. But there's nothing more important in our community than a solid education system, and that is what we have here. We have one of the best districts in the state, and that's not just me saying that because I love Linn-Mar, it's because the data says that. I work for an education nonprofit. I've been in higher ed nonprofit for almost 20 years, which doesn't make me as old as Barry, but I'm creeping up on it. I spend my days creating programming for career and college readiness to help middle school and high school students figure out what they're going to do after they graduate and how to make the most of the time that they have in high school and then find successful careers. And part of that is also looking at what our workforce needs and what our economy needs. And that is what this district is all about, is being part of this community, partnering with our businesses, partnering with our community members, partnering with our families to make sure that we are growing a workforce and growing students and community members that will make Marion stronger. Thank you.
Maybe is this mic on? You hear me?
Is the little green light on?
3, 2, 3, 2, 1. I guess I'm used to being in front of a microphone. My name is Justin Foss. My wife and I, we moved to Marion 10 years ago to raise a family because of the Linn-Mar School District. We were previously living in Southwest Cedar Rapids and moved over here for the district and for the neighborhood and the community. This year I'm running for school board because I think I can make a difference. There are 4 seats open. I've liked the way that the board has run overall, and there are 4 seats open, and now 2 are running for re-election and 2 aren't, so there are 2 open seats. And so I am running, throwing in my hat for the Linn-Mar School Board. I believe I can make a difference with my background, which has been dedicated to volunteer service throughout the community, but as well a strong business background and a communications background. I spent 10 years in the media as a TV news reporter, some of those times for KCRG back when we had the flood. I have spent a lot of time at Alliant Energy as the chief spokesperson for the company, and now most recently for the last 4 years, developing large-scale renewable energy projects across Iowa. I'm used to going and talking to families and to communities and to supervisors and to all sorts of groups across the state to understand what their needs are, where we can find compromise, and where we can't. And I believe that Linn-Mar is a great district, and I'd like to continue that for my 2 kids who are in it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Lau Lancaster. I will not give up my age, so let's start there. But also, it's been fun as we've gathered together here today. Some faces are brand new, and some we go back a ways. My sister was in the first class that started and finished at Linn-Mar. We watched as it went from a gravel road into what you see in front of Linn-Mar today. We are 9 children in my own family of childhood. I am a mama of 6 Linn-Mar grads. I married a Linn-Mar grad. They've all married Linn-Mar grads. I'm just saying it never works. Now I have 3 grandchildren at Linn-Mar. I am proud of my community. Know your why. That's what we were taught, no, right? Know your why. Why do you serve? And I'm going to tell you the why. Because I love my neighbor. And this is how you serve your neighbor. Out of gratitude for the teachers who poured into me, into the parents who drove me here, there, and everywhere so that I could get to before and after events, to those who are our children today that need to know that we want all children to succeed. A school that is safe, inviting, a place where we can all call, a place where we're proud of Linn-Mar. So I'm excited on this journey, and thank you, and I hope I have your vote.
I have some questions in my hand, but let me just say to the candidates, we will rotate who goes first, so it's not always the same person who has the first shot at a question, okay? So actually, Katie, I think we'll start with you. And
No test anxiety here, let's go.
What are 2 to 3 strengths of which the school district can be proud? Why do you see these as strengths?
Oh, wonderful. So I'll get to start on the positive strengths. We do have a long tradition of excellence. That's because we have students, parents, and teachers working together. We have an administration that says this is a place we are proud of, and therefore it needs to be resourced. It needs to be valued beyond just us, but in our state legislature as well. We have a long history of Iowa being known for its public schools. And I think that's important, public schools. That we got together saying this is a place we wanted our children to go to school, and in public schools, with public money, we will continue to help it to thrive. Our strengths, again, are the people. And the way that they are able to communicate with one another and continue to challenge one another. I love going to meetings where they give the reports and they say, here's our strengths, and we as educators and professionals, we acknowledge our growing edges. I also want to say that I think part of our tradition is the community that speaks well of us. Linn-Mar has always been a school without a town. Therefore, we need the larger community to think well and speak well, and I think that's one of our greatest strengths, is our community around us.
Okay, Justin Foss. So I think the 3 strengths that I really think about with Linn-Mar, first is that it's a large district. In Iowa, there are a lot of small districts, and that's something that a lot of people have a lot of pride in. Linn-Mar bucks that trend. It's one of the larger districts in the state. And what that means is it allows more opportunities for kids. We have more diversity of classes because we have more kids that are able to take those classes. We're able to provide more language options. We're able to provide more of the skilled trades exposure that some of the other school districts can. So I think that's an opportunity that we really have. As Katie said, we have buildings. We have buildings that are in great shape because we've maintained them for years. Our buildings aren't falling apart. We're not having to close off sections of the buildings because they're not in good shape. We have good assets because we've taken care of them. We have amazing staff. You can have all the buildings you want, but if you don't have dedicated staff to take care of them and to teach in them, you've got nothing. We have amazing staff. Of my 2 kids, I've got a 4th grader and a 7th grader. The dedication that I've seen to helping my 4th grader go from below grade level reading to above grade level reading in the last 2 years is something I would have never imagined. And so the dedication that I see in our staff is amazing. Last thing I'll say is the students. Just think about our show choir for last year. National champion for the show choir across the entire country. We have amazing students. And so those are the 3 strengths that I see for Linn-Mar.
Having deja vu to Sandra Nelson telling me 4 years ago, she just wanted to say ditto. So I'm gonna agree with Katie and with Justin. We do have amazing academic opportunities. We have families that move across town and then open and roll back in because the other district just could not offer the programs that we offer. And that, it says something. If you ever look at our catalog of program offerings, it looks more like a college program catalog than it does what my high school looked like. We do have state and national championship student teams. Our students are amazing. We have national merit scholars in our graduating class. Our students continue to do amazing things. We do offer more opportunities for our students. Our staff, I think, is our greatest strength because they enable our students to be strong. I have had incredible experiences as a parent with staff members willing to go above and beyond the call. That is what teachers do, but we have teachers that go even further. And I've never met a more dedicated group of professionals than we have on staff at Linn-Mar. And that's not just teachers, that's our support, that's our nutrition, that's our administrators. Everyone is, when we say we are Linn-Mar, that is the truth of this district. And the last, I will agree that our community is a great strength because we could not do a fraction of what we are able to do as a district if we did not have a supportive community behind us. And that's our businesses, our parents, our community members, our grandparents that show up. Thank you.
Well, it's pretty simple because, as everybody has mentioned, we are Linn-Mar. We believe in Linn-Mar. We know what Linn-Mar does for us. Kind of a piece of that puzzle too is our academics are far and above. And the piece of that puzzle fits right in with the superintendent that we have on staff, the leadership team we have in our organization. And what's interesting to me is we are still a destination. We had a handful of teachers retire this past year, and that's always a positive note too, because they leave when they desire. But then, you always have some turnover. But the interesting thing is we don't have openings. We hear about shortage of teachers, we hear about shortage of staff, and that's a big challenge going forward. And the positive piece of that is once again, the number of teachers that have transferred come in from other districts because they want to be in our district, they want to teach our children, they want to do that. This last week, we've been at a number of schools the last few weeks, and some of the questions that we had asked is how are you dealing with teacher shortages or whatever that might be. The number of student teachers we have in our district right now is just amazing. So I'm just so thrilled to have the young people wanting to be educators, wanting to be teachers, and because education is still a tremendous part of our community.
Thank you. Well, this is coincidental, but the next question has to do with ESAs, and Justin, we'll start with you. Do you believe ESAs are going to hurt public education? That is the education vouchers,
Yeah.
savings accounts, yes.
You bet. So the question is on what's my position on school vouchers and what do I think the impact of the schools would be. And here's how I'm going to answer that. As a school board member, I don't get a say in whether or not vouchers exist. That is not a decision that I get to make. That is not a decision that the school board gets to make. That is a decision that the legislature gets to make and the voters who vote in the legislators. So as a school board and as a school board member, my role would be to find a way to make the funding decisions that allow us to survive and thrive with the funding that the state gives us. So whether they're a good idea or not is irrelevant. I don't get to choose that. I have no control over that. The control, though, that I do have is how do we provide a good school system? How do we provide a strong education with the funding that is allowed for us from the state? What I can do is help all of the parents and the voters in our district, because I hear from a lot of voters who don't have kids anymore or who never had kids in the district, who say, why is it this way? And what we can do is just let them know what the funding situation is. When we can tell people that the funding, the costs for a school district are going up, and the funding that we get from the state is not keeping pace with it, that helps them understand. It's communication.
I believe that public dollars should support public schools. And I advocated for that along with the rest of the board. And here's the thing, we are sitting in a big, beautiful library that this community funded. And if tomorrow I said, I don't use the library, I should get my money back and I can go to Barnes & Noble, that's not how it works. Public tax dollars support the growing community needs, and the community needs are that we have a strong public school system that will welcome and support and teach anyone who walks through the door. No matter what they need, we will be there for them. So for me, yes, ESAs are going to hurt public education because there are only so many dollars. And we all want to pay less taxes, which means what is collected has to be shared and divided out. And the more that go to a private school that has also the ability to fundraise on its own for whatever it wants to cover, we don't have that option. We have what the state gives us. So I am 100% against public school dollars, public tax dollars going to private entities. I believe that we need to invest in our community, into the institutions that are here to serve all of us.
You know, I have to be real cautious with this statement, but I was a Christian school student for 8 years. And I can honestly say deep down in my heart that when I went to high school, I was not ready for high school. It might have been me, it might have been the schools, I really can't answer that. So as we talk about the voucher system, as we talk about all of that, as we travel around the community, it amazes me the people that want to talk to us and tell us why they think vouchers are good and why they think they're not good. But my opinion, like Brett's, is public dollars for public education. But the challenges that we go through, that there are still guidelines and rules that we as a school district need to stand by. We need to be accountable for every piece of everything that we do with students. Our role is to educate every student in our boundaries, in our districts. And if that child makes a decision to go to a private school, I'm thrilled for that. Go right ahead and do that. The challenge is if that child has an education issue, IEP issues, special ed issues, those schools don't want them and they don't have to take them. But our role is we need to educate all students at all times for everything, and that's really critical when it comes to funding for our district.
Thank you. I feel strongly and so grateful that this community has so many different offerings for families and parents to make the best decision that works for their family. We have homeschooling, but we also have private schools. We have those that are supported by churches, those that are not. But the public school is for all public children. That is what we agreed to as a state, that we would educate in our local areas, in our communities, whether they were combined or consolidated schools, that each community would have an offering of a public school. Therefore, I feel strongly public money is for public schools. And I just say that I think that was always the understanding. I think people, if you really ask them deeply, hey, can I take a little bit of your money and take it towards somebody else's child? Meanwhile, the school district over here is going to have to figure out how to do less. I don't think they would have said, oh yeah, go for it. I think public money goes to public schools. In addition to that, I think the role of the school board is to make sure that we know how this is affecting our local budgets. That when this money has been taken or we need to disperse it, that it will have a direct impact on our budget, which will have a direct impact on our community.
Well, I have a couple more questions related to budget and to taxes. Let me go with the one on taxes, and Britannia, this will be your start. The voter-approved physical plant and equipment levy comes up for renewal in 2025. Really, there's two parts to this question. Do you support renewal, and how should that money be used?
So PEPL, the physical plant and equipment levy, does expire in 2025. I want to say, confirm that it's a 10-year levy. We have to ask for renewal every 10 years. PEPL is restricted funding, so it can only be used for facilities maintenance, outdoor athletic equipment, or facilities that are not directly attached to a building. Like, there's all kinds of very specific things and rules on how that money can be spent. It cannot be spent for the general fund. It cannot be used for teacher salaries or curriculum or transportation. Do I think that we should renew it? Absolutely, because that is how we maintain our buildings. And it's already been mentioned here that we have great facilities that are all in great shape, and that's because the community has approved PEPL in part. When we ask for this extension, it is not a tax increase. We are not asking for a higher levy rate. We are asking for an extension of the current levy rate. So yes, I do think it's important that this passes. I do think that it's important that we continue to maintain our facilities so that we don't end up in similar situations to those around us with too many buildings to fix and a question of where the funding might come from. This is how we maintain our facilities.
Yeah, and I don't need to add to any of the statistics because taxes are always brought up. But I really think deep down inside, my apologies to one of our neighboring districts, but they're going through a $220 million bond issue today because they didn't keep their buildings up. And I feel for them. I'm sorry for them, but over the years, Linn-Mar's tax levy's always been higher than most of our neighbors. And we've done everything in our power through the 1 cent sales tax, through our bond issues, etc., that we do everything in our power to lower tax rates, lower tax levy rates if we possibly can. But this PEPL vote as a whole is very critical, just keeping our buildings up, keeping our facilities up, and keeping moving forward. It doesn't affect us building new buildings and all that like we as taxpayers feel it does. You know, why do we need to build another building? Well, that has nothing to do with it. This is strictly keeping up what we have, working on our playground equipment, working on all that, etc. So it's really an important vote as we move forward. And it's really important that we try to keep things up. As everybody knows, inflation's going up every day. And to keep our buildings, keep our facilities, our labor, whatever that is. So I hope that's a clean answer, even though we might think it's passing the buck, but it's still critical that we move forward.
Given what's already said, yes, I support renewal. That supporting of renewal will not make your taxes go up. Only the Linn County assessor can value your property and then therefore assess more or less value to your property. The Linn-Mar School Board takes the money that has been assigned to the assessed value of your home, and that is how we get to this particular conversation that we're having now. You know, we grew up with the stories of when the first Novak building was actually even begun. And a lot of it was done because neighbors had some time off, or they all worked together to create a building because, right, nobody wanted all those uneducated farm kids. That is not how the Marion, Linn-Mar, Cedar Rapids, Robbins, Hiawatha, rural Linn County communities see the value of students today. We want them to be in facilities where they are safe, where they can learn from one another, where teachers feel that the space that they are in is dignified to teach a class. We want to be known that we are a place that maintains what we've been given, especially playgrounds. I was a PTO chair for many years. And it's really hard when you're in one of the buildings that does not have the same economic basis as some of the others. It becomes a competition between playgrounds. Children should be able to play freely and equally.
I support passing the PEPL. It's pretty clean, pretty simple like that. I think it's always important for folks to understand in policy and in public discourse, there's always a marathon effect. And what we all remember is from a few years ago when Linn-Mar was tagged as having among the highest tax rates in the state or among school districts. And we all remember that. What we don't remember is that it's lowered. It has since lowered. And in fact, it is now lower than some of our neighboring school districts and across the state as well. We remember it being high. We don't remember it coming down and being lower like it is. So when people ask about this, they still remember that it's super high. It's not. In addition, extending it, as I talked to a dad in my neighborhood about this, and he said, well, you're not going to raise the rate, right? I said, no, the rate stays the same. He says, well, it's money already spent for maintaining buildings. That's not a tax increase. Yet at the same time, I've seen disinformation spread online about how this is a $40 million bond or some other disinformation that's out there. It is not. Voters need to understand this, they need to educate themselves. You'll see the signs that are up at the schools now that say different things that are funded by PEPL, so we understand and can get that information out there. But yes, I support PEPL. It is how we maintain our buildings. Linn-Mar is not the highest. They have done their fiduciary responsibility to keep everything going.
Our next question, Barry, we'll start with you and Katie, then come Barry, Katie, and this way. And it's the final question I'll ask on budget, unless we get more. Do you favor making the Linn-Mar school budget public?
Well,
Use your mic, Larry.
that's an interesting question, because it is public. The Linn-Mar budget, it comes up to public hearing, and it is a public budget. So I guess I'm not really sure what that question is and what that really means, but you know, just a couple comments on that. I think budget is always a discussion. You know, Barry, why are you building new buildings? Well, a few years ago, we were fortunate to get the 1 cent sales tax. 1 cent sales tax came in, and we can only spend that money on 3 items. We can spend it on new buildings, we can spend it on technology, and we can spend it to lower the tax levy. And every year that I've been involved with the board, we have lowered the tax levy with that. I personally have not been involved with a bond issue. Over the last 12 years that I was involved, we had one bond issue about 5 or 6 years ago. But in that bond issue, we promised our tax levy went up and we would bring it back down to the level that we're at. And of course, budget moving forward with the funding from the state of Iowa is going to be challenged over the next few years, and that's out of our control.
Thank you very much. You know, okay, this is my test anxiety coming up to you. I've been studying numbers all day long, and in a minute you ask me a question, they go, gone. And so for those of you who understand that, you appreciate that. Where did I get my numbers? The transparency of our school district. I can't make these numbers up. I cannot just say, well, I'm going to put numbers down and then debate them so that I can look good or I can make the district look bad. These numbers are public information. Now, we have a wonderful staff as well, and we lean into that. We have an outstanding superintendent who has hired and has surrounded herself by excellent staff that are digging deeper into these numbers so that they can be continued to be explained to us. But I have to tell you, I had a coffee house chat with a bunch of individuals, and one thing we learned was that we've made a lot of assumptions on how money gets spent, and then we hear some little tidbit from someplace else and not the Linn-Mar community resources, and we run with it. And one of the questions came up is, what are you doing with all this money? And the 9 different buckets of how money can be spent and how they cannot be transferred and so forth and so on. We got done, all of our anxiety went down, and the first thing someone said is, does everybody have access to this information? Yes, you do.
I work at a regulated utility where we have open books. That's the advantage of having a regulated company. We've got open books. Linn-Mar has open books. This concept of having different buckets of money for different expenses, I get it. That's what we have here at Linn-Mar as well. The books are open. Anybody who thinks that they're not is either fooling you or trying to find a different narrative to tell. Now, does that mean that they're easy to understand? No, of course not. You know, I've got my MBA, but even then, with a background in finance, I still have to ask questions. It still takes time to understand everything that's going on. That's why we have to have amazing staff. Our job as a school board really is to help understand and prioritize the goals and where we want to put the funding and the budgets. So, you know, the questions of, is it public? Yes, it's very public. Now, what I will say is my neighborhood lost our school busing that we've had for a long time for my middle school student who's now at Excelsior. I knew that we were having issues with the budget. That one caught me by surprise, and I know that the school had talked a little bit about it. What I would like to see is a continued, a little bit more discussion about how the budget impacts are affecting us so we can plan a little bit sooner and you can see it coming. And I recognize that that's not always possible, but it is something that hit home for me, and it's a reminder that we need to continue to talk about this for our families.
So I won't repeat, other than to say that all of our finances are absolutely public. We're a public school, public record. You can see our monthly statements. We approve them once a month on the board agenda. They're always there. You can ask for our audited financial report. We have an outside audit firm come in. I've served on the Finance Audit Committee all 4 years that I've been on the board. We have A++ clean audits every year. It's a historical trend for Linn-Mar. It's a very good one to have. It means we're doing what we're supposed to do in the best way we're supposed to do it. And you can see our budgets. You can go to the Iowa Department of Education's website and download as many spreadsheets as makes you happy about our budget. It is all public information. That being said, school finance is complicated. School finance law is complicated. I would say I know what I know because I've been on the Finance Audit Committee and I've taken part in so much professional development around school finance because I want to understand it. I want to be able to have conversations with people like this and say, yes, there are buckets that we can't move money from one bucket to the other. There are rules and regulations and they don't always make sense at first glance. Why are you cutting this budget and building a new building? That, I get it, it's difficult to understand, but we have to follow finance law. And if you have questions, just come ask because it's all public record.
Thank you. Katie, we'll start with you. There are a lot of people who have interest and questions related to book bans. No surprise that that probably came up. And we're dealing with legislation here on the state level. One of the questions was worded, what should the board policy be regarding the state legislator and governor's legislation? I'm not sure board policy is the right word there, but
Well, let me dig in and see if we can get there.
go.
All right, so it's been mentioned a couple times, so I just want to get this cleared up. All school boards, because they are public, are bound to the laws of the legislation in the state. We cannot just say we disagree and do our own thing. What we do is we bring those laws and we figure out the best way to move forward in our community. I want to share with you, it wasn't until this question came up, because my family are readers. We have all just enjoyed reading so much. One of my favorite memories is my husband reading on the staircase to all 6 of our kids, and then watching as they read to one another. These ideas from cultures and understandings that were not our own, and it broadened their experiences. Recently we had families from Tanzania staying with us. What did I give them? Books. So they could show stories and read stories to others to learn more about us. This book banning, I would say, Linn-Mar has had on the books since 2008, a way to select books and a way for families and parents to do what they should do best, be an advocate for their children and know what books they are being asked to read. And if they do not want that book, there is a process in place. The state has now also has that process to kind of jumped over our own process, but know that your school board was ahead of the game since 2008 to respect the decisions of parents.
I believe we have to follow state law. Simple as that. Follow state law. I don't want to break state law, and I sure as heck do not want my teachers and our staff to feel the wrath and consequences of inadvertently breaking state law. So I think that as a school board, we need to have strong policies to protect staff and to protect the teachers who are doing so much. I spoke to 3 different librarians this summer at the school districts. 2 of them said that they couldn't sleep at night because they were worried that they might accidentally offer a book that they thought in their heart was good for kids, and for some reason someone had an issue with, and that they would then be fired or face civil penalties. And so that breaks my heart, and it makes me worried. And what can we do as a school board? Have strong policies to take that risk, take that burden off of them, so they can do what they need to do to teach kids. Now, as a personal note, I believe that more books are better than less books. Being the dad of a child who's struggling to read, if I could get her to read any book, I'd be really happy about it, because that's what you need to do. I believe in my heart that some of the best books that I've read forced me to think differently, put me in an uncomfortable position, because it made my mind make different connections than what I would have already. It exposed me to the world around me. But again, we have to follow state law.
Yes, we have to follow state law, and our policies do just that. Usually our policies, if it's because of legislation, the policy is pretty verbatim. This is what the law says, and this is how we're going to enact that through procedure. So yes, we follow the law, but now I want to get to the actual crux of the question: do I believe in banning books? The thing with banning books is that you're taking away experiences that may help someone through whatever they are experiencing. And I think it's important for everyone to sit back for a minute and say, not everyone's life looks like mine. Not everyone's experience looks like mine. And we can't assume that because I don't like a book, it's not exactly what someone else needs to read in that moment to get them through their day. I am an avid reader. I would say read as many books as you can on as many different subjects by as many different authors as you can get your hands on. I escape from the world into Middle Earth or Narnia. I experience life through the eyes of Malala. What is it like to be in that situation? I have no idea. I'm a white farm kid from Iowa. What do I know about living in war-torn Pakistan? Well, I do a little bit now because I read her book. We need to expand our worldview, and a lot of ways to do that is for a kid to find a book and say, no one understands me, but the character in this book speaks to me, and now I feel heard. I feel like I'm not alone, and that is incredibly important.
You know, book banning is a phrase, it's a big phrase in the community, a big phrase in our state today. You know, I'm just so fortunate. I have 7 granddaughters and 2 grandsons, and when we're together with them, it just amazes me. All of a sudden we'll look over to the side of the room and they're reading books. And I think I had a discussion with Amy, the superintendent, about this. And one of the biggest concerns that we have today is the socioeconomic challenges in our state and in our country. And if 40 to 50% of your children are socioeconomically challenged, first of all, their mom and dad don't read. So then the next step is how are we going to be able to get those children to read? So as you know, the challenge that we have is this spring, I met with a number of librarians, or whatever their title is today, and they all said, leave us alone. Leave us alone. We know what books the kids want to read. We study them. We read them. You know, they don't just put books on the shelf just for fun. The challenge we're having too is that on the state level, the State Board of Education has put this book ban in place, but they're not giving us any direction. So we're not really sure. We want to stay in the law, and we appreciate, but they're not giving us that part. So we really need to protect our staff, our leadership, and our organization to do the right thing for our children.
The next question, dead battery, of course. I'll just
I don't want to hear you.
switch into my teacher voice. The next questions have to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we'll be starting with Justin on this one. I'm trying to summarize. I'll go with this. What are your plans to encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion at Linn-Mar for students and staff? And, you know, another part of that was the policy towards student requests for confidentiality related to gender identity. Justin, you get to open the floor on that one.
Sure, yeah. I'm hoping that everybody online could hear the question without using the mic. So if they couldn't, I'll just repeat it here real quick. And correct me if I'm wrong, is that the question was about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What's my plan to help encourage that at the state? And then it was the second question on?
Towards students' requests for confidentiality related to gender identity.
Yep, to students' request for confidentiality related to gender identity. Let me answer that one first, and then I'll go into the rest. First off, again, gotta follow state law. Gotta follow state law. The state's enacted law this last summer that dictates what's allowed, what's not allowed. As a school district, we have to follow that. Where I believe that we need to do is provide strong policies that we do have already on the books to protect our staff from inadvertently making a mistake that could cost them their teaching license. The consequences for this are huge, and I've heard from many staff at the schools who do not want to put their neck on the line to accidentally make a mistake or to have somebody intentionally try to trick them. Because we've seen it around the country, where they are providing bonuses and bounties, where they're trying to intentionally trick teachers to have them lose their license. We cannot allow that to happen, so we need to have strong policies. We have that. All right. Now, let me ask the next piece here about DEI. We're not all the same background. We're not all the same priorities. We don't all have the same motivations, and we need to recognize that and continue that. Part of what we have to do is fight just as hard for kids who are of one belief set as they are of a different belief set. And when we think about policies, we need to continue to think about policies that balance the both, and to think about who is hurt here and how do we keep it so that everybody has equality.
So we did enact a policy that follows the new state law, where you can only address a student by the parent-approved name or pronoun. If a student requests confidentiality, unfortunately, that's no longer an option for our staff. And my heart goes out to those students, because I know that some are facing a very difficult situation with that, and it will put them in potentially harm's way. But we have the policy in place, and we actually, the district brought in our school's attorney to do professional development at the beginning of the year before the school started with every single staff member, outlining the changes in legislation, what they need to do, how they need to approach those situations to be in compliance with the law. So we take this very seriously. It doesn't matter if I like the law or not, we follow the law. That is our job. The second part about encouraging DEI, we have a great DEI committee made up of community members. I actually attended my first committee for that last night. I filled in for a fellow board member. And it's a diverse group of community members, parents. We have a student representative there, and they are focused on how do we make sure that the things that we offer are equitable to everyone, that we are covering all of the different cultures and diversities and backgrounds that are present in our district, that we are not only catering to one group or another. And I think that that's how we continue to move forward.
My thoughts on this are, Title 19 was passed in 1965, around there. And Title 19 tells us that we cannot discriminate on any person, no matter what that is, race, creed, sex, whatever that rule is. And I feel as a country we stand behind that, and I feel as a person and as a Christian individual I stand behind that. And when you go through all of this discussion, I still, our role as a board member is to manage a district. Our role is to, we have a superintendent, we have leadership, and our role is to set policy. So in that policy, albeit in the law, with the law, we follow the law, but we still have to have respect for the whole leadership team in our organization. And that leadership team is making the best decisions that they can make. And once again, we're here for all students, because we're all different. All four of us up here are different. And we need to stand behind that, and we need to educate, quote, all students.
Growing up in Iowa, our narrative for the state was that we welcomed all. We were a place that took in refugees when there was no other homes. We were a place that in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, if you still talk to some of our Muslim brothers and sisters, that is the beginning of the first mosque in North America. That is our tradition, our rich tradition. Well, I came from that. Out of 30 grandchildren in my family, from my mom and dad, only 10 are biologically connected. Out of that 10, 6 are biracial. Can I just tell you, it's just a way of life. It's just who we've been. Now, I'm blonde and blue-eyed, and I don't know what that means to have to walk into a room and wonder if you are welcomed or not. But I will be an ally to those who do. There was this lovely high school student who came to one of our school board meetings. And at the very end of a very long meeting, she stayed. You know, she had other places to be, but she stayed. And what she asked when she was there, when she got to the mic, she asked the school board, will you have the confidence that if a rock is thrown at me, at least you will be close enough to me that the wind, you feel the wind go by you. If a high school senior can make that statement, certainly I will be an ally by her side.
Another question or group that people are interested in has to do with school safety. And Brittany, I think we start with you on this one. What should the Linn-Mar School District be doing to ensure the safety of students and staff?
Well, I'm going to start by saying that we have a great relationship with Marion Police Department. They partner with us on our ALICE training, which is not always the most fun topic. I did it as a parent when my son was in kindergarten, and it sticks with me when I go anywhere, what I learned that night. But we have to be vigilant and we have to be consistent. And last year the state passed funding for every district who wanted to participate to go through a safety assessment of every single building, and we participated. And so the state sent in people and they went through every single one of our buildings. They assessed all of our safety procedures and they made recommendations. They wrote a whole report that we got late last spring. And now I know our administrative team is going through that report and looking at recommendations, and we're going to hear about what those recommendations are. I know there are plans for updated security intercom systems campus-wide. I'm looking forward to seeing what the state thinks that we should do, but I also know that when we work with Marion PD, they make great recommendations and they keep us informed of what we should be doing. And so that's from the high-level safety. In terms of when you're in the building feeling safe, we have to keep going on our anti-bullying. We have to make sure that staff show that they're not just there to teach, they're there to care. And so students feel like they've got a person. I know when we do our board visits, we hear about, they do student claiming, which means, does a staff member know enough, like 3 things about a student? There's a list. And if a staff member can say that about a student, that student has a person in the building that they trust. We need to keep doing that too.
You guys don't see the sign up here, it says stop.
But we're cooperative. Role model.
No, school safety, of course, there's in the news every day we hear about this. And so we're very fortunate over the last number of years. Every building is secure. If you want to walk into a building, you have to go through jump through the hoops, etc., and that kind of stuff. But what we have to think about in our lives today, there are a number of students, number of children. The school is their own safe place. Otherwise, in their homes, in their neighborhoods, some children are not safe. And we need to keep talking through that over and over and over again because it's a critical piece of it. But, basically, as a city and as a community, I spent about 2 hours in the high school one day, and my goal was to find out how safe is this building, how are the children acting, what's happening, and I stood and talked to the resource officer for about an hour. And what was interesting to me, just kind of on a small quick note, what was interesting to me is he got on his radio, somebody said, you need to be here, and boy, he was gone. He was out of there. But what was intriguing to me is the number of people that came out of different offices and different rooms that stepped up. The building was secure, it was safe, and we're just trying to do the best we can possibly do it. And of course, special shout out to Officer Dobbs. He does a tremendous job. So.
Thank you. Okay, so this will reveal a little bit of age. Back in the day when we used phones just, to make phone calls, and so I remember my kids at this time, I had 5 in the district, so I had 2 at the high school, I had 1 at the Excelsior, and then I had 2 more at Novak, and there was a lockdown. Now here's how I learned to text. My high school senior sends me this message, we're in lockdown in the choir room, I'll tell you more later. I learned to text right away because what do you mean you're on lockdown? Here's what happened. At the high school, they assumed that somebody had been messing around in the cafeteria and that there had been some arguments going on. At the middle school, they assumed that somebody had pulled the fire alarm. At Novak, the assumption was some parent had come into the building to try to take someone home and didn't have permission. In the end, the Marion Police Department, out of respect and for the safety of all students, happened to be shutting down the back where the creek is, which affected Novak, Excelsior, and the high school. We have safe buildings. We have a great relationship with our law enforcement. But the basic thing is all students, all staff, and parents should know that the place that they have gathered in is trusted, that you are safe, and that your children will come home, and that your loved ones who work there will also come home safely. That is a goal that is unwaverable for all of us.
With a 4th grader and a 7th grader in the district, we've gotten many notes about ALICE drills. And if you don't know what an ALICE drill is, I'll simplify it in short. They take all the kids and say, look, we all need to be organized and we need to leave the school now. And many times some of the ALICE drills that we've seen at Indian Creek Elementary are, we are now going to walk together down to Indian Creek Country Club, where we're going to meet, rally, make sure we have every single student accounted for, and go back to class. It is different than the fire drills that we've had when we all grew up. And the first time I heard about this, I thought to myself, oh my God, what's going on? I've heard about this on the national news. This is happening here. What is my daughter going to think of this? And you know what? Our staff are amazing. The kids understood as much as they should the gravity of the situation, but the staff made them feel comfortable, made them feel like it was okay, made them cool, calm, and collected. That's what we need. When I graduated high school back in, 1998, we had a brand new high school, and it was my senior year was the brand new, and the doors had no handles on the outside. That was our first attempt back then to make a secure campus. I believe that we should try and invest in buildings, but we cannot make the campus perfect. What we can do is continue to train staff and students to know what to do.
I think we have time for one last question before we do a closing. And this relates to curriculum and instruction. And Barry, you'll start with this. The legislature passed House File 802 in 2021 that has requirements related to racism, sexism, diversity, inclusion efforts. You know, these topics shouldn't be taught and that type of thing. So has Linn-Mar changed the district's history courses, or has any of the curriculum been affected by what teachers teach based on this legislation that you're aware of?
I think the quick answer to that is no. And our curriculum people Amy might look at me and say, come on, Barry, what are you doing? But, you know, I'm the finance guy on the board. I do that role. But from a curriculum standpoint, we are always modifying our plans. We're always working towards, once again, the law. But we have not had to change any of our curriculum due to that law, because we have always abided by common sense, abided by, once again, what every child wants, what every child needs, and what all parents want. So when it comes to policy and when it comes to curriculum, our curriculum is always changing. And the reason it's always changing is we need to make sure we challenge our children. We need to make sure we have them ready for college. When we look at where our kids are at today, you know, we are just absolutely, I have a daughter-in-law that looks at me daily and says, Barry, I just can't imagine what my daughter's going through as a junior in high school, because she's head and shoulders above anything I ever thought about doing in high school. So that's really the positive when we look at challenges, and when our kids go to college, are they ready for college? Are they prepared for college? And are they, and some of our children have told us that our freshman year in college has been a little bit boring because we're so prepared.
Thank you. A curriculum question, and this is actually has a lot more depth to it than just how do you select curriculum. But let's do a quick curriculum review 101. Because one of the questions we had to answer in the last week, I believe for the Gazette, was whose responsibility is it to select curriculum for schools? Well, to find that, being the little historian that I am, I researched this, and there once again are policies and guidelines that Linn-Mar already has in place on how you select curriculum. But the board's responsibility is to hire an outstanding superintendent. The superintendent hires outstanding staff. That staff specifically is to select curriculum that best teaches and prepares our students, with one little caveat, according to the law, according to the guidance from our state legislation. So in that, if you are seeing a change, history changes because of how we learn and engage in it. I went to St. Olaf College. Man, they all look like me. So I don't know about you guys, but they all look like me. Except they spoke Norwegian in the home, and I thought that was crazy. Who does that? That to me made them so different from me. But as we were there, what I learned was I wanted to know more. And to do that, diaries and firsthand experiences gave me an opportunity to understand how people observe their world from their voice. Why would we not want that as a part of our history, our curriculum here? I trust our process select curriculum that we have now, and we will continue to abide by state law.
You know, my favorite managers and bosses have never told me how to do the job. They just told me what I needed to achieve. That's the same as the school board. We cannot attract the best talent if we're dictating how to do the job. People go they learn, they spend years studying how to be a superintendent, how to implement curriculum, how to be a teacher. And I believe as a school board, our role is to hire the best people to do the job, set the goal, set the vision, and then let them bring their own unique talents to help achieve that goal and that vision. Of course, we have to play by the state law. That's a given. And anybody who thinks that we're not playing by the state law, I challenge them to prove it, because we are. But as a school board, it is not our role to do that. Our role is to set the vision, is to hire the right staff to do that. We've got great staff, amazing staff. I would put our staff at the top of the list. And that's why I believe so much in being here in Linn-Mar, and that's why I've enrolled my 2 students in the district, because I believe in the students. I believe in the district.
So I'm going to agree with Barry that we didn't have to change anything when I believe this is the divisive concepts law was passed, because we weren't teaching divisive concepts, we were teaching history, and we were teaching it in a way that helped students understand where we came from so that they could help build a better future for where we're going. But what's interesting about our curriculum, and we have great staff and great leadership, and I really appreciate having conversations with them, but we were going over curriculum a few board meetings ago, how it's selected and what state expectations are, and Associate Superintendent Weir said something that has just, I don't know why it took me 4 years for it to stick in my head, but now it has. Our curriculum is actually the standards set by the state. It's not the books we buy, it's not the worksheets we pass out. We have standards set by the state that dictate what we are supposed to teach our students, what they're supposed to be able to accomplish when they pass a grade. And the books in the curriculum we buy, what's called curriculum, is the tools and resources we use to get them to those standards. So if the standards didn't change, then no, we didn't have to cut out divisive concepts and all of that. But Justin's right, we don't need to micromanage our staff. I did not get a degree in education, I did not get a degree in higher ed, that's not my specialty. We have staff that have dedicated their lives to that specialty, and we trust them to do that.
Well, this is kind of a fun question maybe to end on, and I'll just open it up to whoever would like or knows the answer to this. So the question has to do with the concept of animal dysphoria. And I'll just explain that because I'm a retired college psychology professor. And that is, you know, dysphoria is a disruption in one's identity. So animal dysphoria is identifying as an animal. So the question is, which of the schools in the Linn-Mar district are providing litter boxes in the bathrooms?
1, 2, 3, 9.
Well, you know, and that's probably been one of my biggest disappointments this last couple of years. Because we get the question every day. And basically, my question always is, I want to see pictures, and I want to know where it's at. Because it's not there. It's, for some reason, we've made that decision. So I don't know how else to respond to that.
I'll do a really quick one on that one, just that someone asked me for a yard sign, and I thought, oh, how incredible is that? And then they said, on one condition, and I'm holding it and they're holding it. How do you feel about the kitty box litters, kitty litter in the bathrooms? What? And I thought, wow, you guys must have gotten exhausted by this question, because it already seems, of all the things you could have asked me. So as a Linn-Mar high school student, graduate, mother, grandmother, I have never heard this rumor to come home with anybody other than to listen to it secondhand. I just know that I trust principals, janitors. We hear about the janitors. And we have more problems with students vandalizing with putting forks down toilets than we do kitty litter in a bathroom.
You got me all fired up.
Are you for or against?
Let's be honest here. If you've not stepped foot in a school in the last, 10 years, that might come to your mind. If you've not attended a board meeting with true curiosity in the last many years, that might come to your mind. If you've intentionally enrolled your students in a different district and now are seeking to run in Linn-Mar, that might come to your mind. Right? These are, the problem we have though is it's communication, because people are out there asking about it. They believe it because they want to believe in this sinister effort. And yet when they send their kids to school, they say, gee, I'm really hoping that you're doing awesome. Right? What we need to do is to continue to communicate, to dispel this. And as much as we chuckle, it's a real thing. People are asking about it. People are campaigning on it. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to fight against it. It's great to laugh it off, but that doesn't stop the next person from believing it. We have to actively fight against it.
I've never seen a litter box in any school visit I've been on. Maybe if we get a service animal that's a cat, there might be a litter box, but at this point, no. Justin's absolutely right, though. I have been asked this question more times than, ask me about the budget, ask me about academics, ask me about how students are handling whatever the latest TikTok crisis is. We do not have litter boxes, and animal dysphoria. Do you remember middle school? Because I was a Hello Kitty fan and I had a kitty headband that did not make me a cat. I didn't think I was a cat. Kids are not, it's not a thing. But this is the kind of thing that takes over all of our time. And this is the kind of thing that takes our administrators and our teachers away from what they're actually supposed to be doing. So let's talk about that for a minute. The barrage of ridiculous, endless questions that our administrators get on a daily basis. And it doesn't matter if you answer the questions, because they don't care what the answer is. They just want to take up the time so that you can't educate students. Let's talk about litter boxes in bathrooms. Let's talk about teachers teaching concepts they're not teaching about. Let's talk about building separate buildings for students who just want to come to school and learn. All of this is not what we should be talking about. What we should be talking about is how to build the best school that prepares every single student for their future to join our community as a productive citizen. That is the conversation we should be having. And that is the only conversation we should be having.
Well, I think that reflects when I said the audience could respond at the end. You can respond more if you'd like to, but I would like to thank the candidates who took the time out of their schedule, get an email from some random person inviting them to a forum, and really, really, really appreciate that you took the time to come out. I didn't wear my t-shirt tonight that says, "Democracy is not a spectator sport." But the League of Women Voters, as a nonpartisan organization, does study groups. We identify topics. Education is one of them. Transparency in government is one of them. And so if you have any interest in finding out more about the League of Women Voters, ask any of us around that have our name tags on that we've gone a few minutes over. We'll call it. Barry?
Just real quick comment, and I appreciate it. We want to thank the League of Women Voters. They've done a tremendous job, we think, bringing this together. I can honestly say I'm very disappointed on two levels. First of all, that we couldn't fit everybody in here, because I sincerely was looking forward to this. This is fun, this is exciting, this is really what we want to do. And I'm really disappointed that all of us weren't able to be here to compete, because that's really what this is. We're open. We'll tell you what you want, we'll listen to you. And in all sincerity, when we're done here, I'm going to be here a while. My wife might not agree. So feel free to come and talk to us. We're wide open. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh yeah, Chip's parking lot, that's right.
My daughter went to
One done, one to go.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, but it's like right time. You take care of yourself.
How are you?
I saw you up there and I was like,
Oh, yes. Good to see you.
fine, how about you? Nice to meet you.
Congrats.